Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and this is a continuation of my fiction story, Adventures at Hollywood Hits. Alright, so we pick back up, and so last we were in the story, Sarah had stayed at Hollywood Hits a little after Arnold had left. So it was now the weekend, and so at this point, logically, Arnold and Sarah would not see each other for a while, so Sarah returned to her college in Henderson, Minnesota. She goes to Olmere College. And so she gets back to Olmere College, and she just goes to her room, and she's kind of unpacking all the different things that happened at, she's just unpacking all the different things that happened, you know, when she was at Hollywood Hits. There's a lot to really process. And her roommate comes in, and her roommate says, "Hey, how you doing?" And she says, "Oh, Denise, it's good to see you again." And so they talk for a little while, just catch up with each other, although Sarah does not tell her anything about Hollywood Hits, because she understands it would be hard for anyone to understand what really happened, because she clearly is not sure what really happened. And so she, so Denise says, "Hey, I'm going to a frat party tonight, over at Omega Psi. Would you like to come along?" And so Sarah kind of frowns, and she says, "That's not really my scene, but I really appreciate you inviting me." She says, "But that's nice. I'm glad you're going, because it'll be good if you can meet some other guys other than that guy Mark." And Denise says, "What?" And she says, "That's who I'm going to meet, Mark." And she says, "No, you really need to drop him." And so Denise says, "Well, why should I drop him, Sarah?" And so she says, "Well, there's a lot of bad signals from him. So one, he never calls you. And two, he never asks you any questions about you, or he talks about anything you're interested in. And he never comes to you. So whenever you guys go to dinner, like at the cafeteria, you always go to meet him there. Whenever you guys go out to do anything, you always go and meet him there. He never comes and gets you. So there's a lot of signals that guy's creep, and I get is a creep, and I get a bad vibe about him. So I really think you should find somebody new." And so Denise just kind of frowns, and she says, "Well, you're just plain wrong." And so Sarah says, "Listen, I really appreciate that you did invite me. I don't take that for granted. Thank you. But I'm going to stay in. I got a lot of homework, so a lot to get ready for this week, so I'm going to go ahead and get to work." So she does. So Sarah, she spends most of her time that weekend at Olmere College. And then she has another shift on Monday night. So Monday night, after all her classes, she has her shift. And of course, about 11 o'clock, they're done. And so at that point, Arnold wraps up, and he starts to go his normal direction toward Hollywood's Hits, which is where Sarah now knows that he's heading. And she says, "Hey, she says," so she runs out. She says, "You ready to go?" And Arnold says, "Yes, I am ready to go. I'm going to Hollywood Hits." And she says, "Well, I'm coming too." And so Arnold says, "Listen, this isn't your place. I told you the other day why this place is special to me." And she goes, "Listen. You have got to see what I found." And so Arnold just kind of says, "Well, what did you find?" She says, "That place is very special. Something is happening there, and I have to show it to you." So he goes, "Okay, all right, let's go." So at that point, so Arnold starts walking, and so at that point, Sarah runs back over, unlocks the kryptonite lock on her bike, and rides her bike over. And he goes, "That's how you got to be so quick the other night." And she says, Yeah, I usually ride my bike." "How did you not know that? I ride my bike all the time." And he goes, "I don't watch what you do. I don't watch what any of the waitresses there do." He goes, "I got other things I'm worrying about." And she goes, "Well, what would that be?" And he goes, "Again, none of that's your business." Right? And so at that point, they go the 3 miles to Hollywood Hits together. And Arnold is just walking on the side of the road, and Sarah is kind of doing circles around him on his bicycle. And he looks over and he goes, "That bike looks really expensive." Right? And she kind of frowns, and she says, yeah, this bike is expensive." And he goes, "Well, if you have an expensive bike," and then she frowns again, and he goes, "What are you frowning at?" Which is, "Well, this isn't my only bike." And he's just kind of like, "What?" And so she says, "If you have that expensive bike, why are you working at, working for waitress tips?" And she goes, "Well, that's none of your business, all right? So so at that point, the two of them finish their walk to Hollywood Hits, and walk and ride to Hollywood Hits, and they sneak into the back of Hollywood Hits. It's completely, it's in that essentially mostly abandoned strip mall that just has a nail salon and a gold for cash for gold store, and which are closed at this point. And they sneak in. There's no one at the strip mall. They sneak into the strip mall, and she says, "You have got to see this, right?" And so she walks over to the shelf and she says, "What's your favorite movie?" And he goes, "You already know." And she says, "Yes, yeah, it's Constellation Confrontations, correct?" And he says, "Yes, that is right." And she says, "Watch this," right? So she walks over, she grabs Constellation Confrontations, and Arnold just kind of frowns. He goes, "What are you holding?" And she says, "I'm holding the movie," right? And he says, "You're not holding anything." She says, "I am holding the movie, and you have to watch this," right? So she walks over to the counter where logically you can even still see the clearance of dust where the register used to be, and she puts down the movie, and she says, "How much would you pay to rent a movie?" And so she puts down the movie that she can see that Arnold can't, and he goes, "Oh wow," and he says, "Well, it was exactly $3.31. And he says, "Oh, okay." And so she goes into her pocket and starts to give him. He goes, "Wait, let me pay." And she just kind of she laughs at it, gives a smile. And he pulls out $3.31 and he puts it onto the counter, right? And the moment he puts it on the counter, the whole world around Sarah and Arnold changes, right? And so they are no longer in Hollywood Hits, and the dusty shelves and the darkness is no longer there, and they are in a small dive bar, and Arnold looks around and his eyes go wide as he sees a whole range of aliens. And he's like, "Oh my gosh." And there is music going, and there's an alien band playing upbeat, almost jazz-like music. And he looks around and he sees a horned alien, and he sees an alien that has, 3 eyes, and he sees bulbous aliens that are kind of floating through the air. And he looks out the window and he goes, "Oh my gosh, this is the desert planet." And he says, "We're on Vanskar 2, the desert planet. This is amazing." He goes, "We're in Constellation Confrontations." And Sarah just kind of shakes her head. And she's like, "It's pretty amazing, isn't it?" And she goes, "I didn't know if I could do this, but but I was ready the other night, and I thought I could do it, and I held off because I didn't think it would be safe for either one of us to do this alone." And he goes, and Arnold just like, "This is crazy." He goes, "Holy cows," and he goes, "Oh," and she goes, "What are you seeing?" And he says, "That's Fargle over there. That man with that horribly hideous face, that is Fargle." And she goes, "Fargle?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, he's an intergalactic criminal. He's wanted in like 6 galaxies." And she goes, "Wow, well, we should definitely stay out of his way." And he goes, "Yes, don't order a drink next to him," right? Because he gets cranky. And so Sarah puts this big smile on her face, and then she looks down and she goes, "Look, what are these?" And he goes, "Oh, well, these are actually." We're wearing what the locals wear. These are clothes of a dew conglomerator." And she says, "A dew conglomerator?" And he says, "Yeah, this is a desert planet. Vanskar 2 is a desert planet. So most of the people here, they collect water in with these different machines. And so essentially they're like desert farmers, right?" And she says, "Wow, that's it's just pretty. I wonder how, I wonder why we're wearing this in particular." And he goes, and so then, again, he's like, "This is amazing." He says, and she says, "Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to go, take a walk? Do you want to take a look at some of the spaceships or, and he goes, "No, I know what we need to do. We need to fix everything." And Sarah gets this worried look, and she's like, "What?" And he says, "Oh, yeah. He says, I know exactly what we need to do right now." He says, "We're going to go down to the docks. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find Goban Vex. Goban Vex is a bounty hunter. and he is here because he's been searching for someone. But I know where Fargle is, who's wanted in 6 intergalactic states. There's six different galaxies. So I will tell him where Fargle is, and maybe he'll split the bounty with us." And she goes, "Bounty hunters? Isn't that kind of dangerous?" And he's like, "Yeah, incredibly dangerous." She's like, "Well, maybe we should just kind of tour the area. Just look, like I said, look at the cool starships. Maybe look at the fact that this place has 2 suns. That'd be kind of fun, right?" And he goes, No. There's a lot of things at stake here. We have to fix everything, right?" And so she's like, right this way. And so, so immediately he goes out, and he does. He goes to the docks, and they spend a few hours, and they ask questions of people, and actually are able to find Gobin Vex, right? Now, Gobin Vex, he's wearing what looks like kind of like half plate armor. He has a short carbine laser, and he has what looks to be a pack on his back, which would propel him up into the air, right? Really, really dangerous looking guy. And so Arnold immediately just jumps right in and says, "Listen, I know where a huge bounty is. Give me." Now, the bounty on this guy is 120,000 credits. You're going to put 20,000 credits on this stick right here, and I'll take you to him. And you give me a cred stick with 20,000 credits on it. Star Confederacy credits, and I'll take you right to the guy. So Gobin kind of, he agrees. He nods and agrees. He gives the cred stick over with 20,000 credits. And he immediately goes and he takes him to where Fargle is, and actually as soon as he does, Gobin Vex actually immediately kind of nods, forgets that he has a cred stick, and just goes right into the dive bar, sweeps across a couple tables, slams into Fargle. Fargle starts yelling and kind of swings a few punches, and Gobin Vex just decimates him, right? Breaks his arm right in half, slams to the ground, rolls him over, cuffs him, and grabs a napkin off the table, shoves it in his mouth to keep him quiet, literally throws him over his shoulder, walks right out the door, right? So Gobin Vex is very happy to have 120,000 credit bounty that he's collecting after giving up 20,000 Star Confederacy credits, and so he's pretty excited. And so Sarah's like, "Whoa, what's happening?" And she goes, "How do you know all this?" And he goes, "Well, I mean, don't everybody knows something about constellation confrontations?" And Sarah goes, "Yeah, even I do." She says, "I had a boyfriend who was really into it for a while, so even I know a little bit, but not like this." And he goes, "Next thing we need to do, we need to get a land speeder." He says, "We'll rent it for 200 credits. That's about the going rate here." And she goes, "How do you know all this? This wasn't even in the movies." And he goes, "Oh, there were tons of books. I read them all, right?" So and she's like, "Oh, man." She kind of groans. And she's, "All right, let's do our thing here." So they go and they rent a land speeder. And he says, "Okay, we're going to go out past the 3rd canyon. And we're going to go for a few miles. And we'll find, and at that point, we should find where these dew conglomerators are. And there's a specific farm that we're looking for. It is the Starstrider farm." And she says, oh, you mean Larn Starstrider? And she goes, "Isn't that like that hopeless, just kind of desert farmer kid?" And he goes, "Desert farmer kid, but destined to be the greatest Quajar the universe will ever know." And she goes, "Oh yeah, Quajars, those mystical knights." And of course, the evil Quajar, the Shadow Quajar, who are the bad mystical knights. And he says, "Yeah, of course." He says, so she says, "Well, what are we going to do? I mean, he's got his own destiny set." And he goes, and Arnold goes, No. His destiny is completely wrong, and we're going to fix that, right? So she has, again, just gets this big frown on her face. And of course, they, at this point, they're zipping through the desert, and you could see like this beautiful sunset behind them. And and Sarah looks over at Arnold, and Arnold's got his kind of desert farmer garb on, and he's got his he's got part of his garb pulled up over his face. He looks super cool because it's his the rags that are kind of around his face catching the dust, and he just she can't see him smile underneath the garb, but he is definitely smiling as the land speeder just whips across the area. So at that point, they go to this dew farm, which is basically a desert farm, and they jump out of the car, and and basically it's almost nighttime, right? And so he goes, "Come on, this way. Lauren will be in the garage area." So they go over, and sure enough, there is an area that is used to maintain a small ground-based, a small planet-based, almost like a small fighter with just a very small laser carbine underneath, small short wings, and just like one single jet engine. And he goes, "Oh yeah, that's an X-17. Lauren flies that." And of course, so at this point, Arnold goes right down into the garage, and there's Lauren Starstriker, and he's working on these Duke collaborators. And Arnold comes up, and he goes, "Listen, don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed." He goes, "I know you have friends over in some of the local towns. I know one of your friends, and I know you're very interested in helping those who in helping the revolution against the Star Confederacy. So you really were kind of interested in helping the revolution, correct?" And Lauren goes, "I never really told many people about that." And so Arnold says, "Listen, I know already a lot of your friends have left to help the revolution start fight the Star Confederacy, and I know this is really on your mind a lot. So sit down. We have a lot to talk about." And he says, "Now, it doesn't look like it. I'm in disguise, but Lauren, I am a Quajar, and I know both your past and your future. And I need to tell you a few things. So the first thing I need to tell you is that I know you believe your father was a good man, and that he fought. He also fought to free people and to do everything he could. And that you've been told that, and that you now live with your uncle and your aunt, but none of that is true. Your father was a very evil man, and he was integral in making sure that the Star Confederacy was strong. And so this is important. You need to understand this. And you have and he was a Quajar, but he was a Shadow Quajar. He was one of the biggest, best Shadow Quajar that ever lived. And you just need to understand this." And he says, "And very close to where you live right now, here on Van Scar 2, is another Quajar by the name of, Ivar Nuben. And we are not going to deal with him at all. I just want you to know that he's here. He is on the side of the good Quajars, but he has a lot of history with your father, and I think if he had been given the chance, he would not have told you the truth about your father, and you deserve to know the truth. So listen, you need to learn the ways of the Quajar. It is extremely important that you leave here right now, because you are in an incredible amount of danger, and your aunt and uncle are in an incredible amount of danger. And if you stay here right now, they will die within the next week. Because what's about to happen is there's going to be a lot of activity right here on this planet around the revolution, and you need to not be here, and your uncle and your aunt need to not be here. It is critical that you believe me. So what we're going to do is I know a specific planet where your uncle can get a job, and it's a free world where he will be able to serve as a consultant for a company that makes these Duke conglomerators. He has tons of actual experience using these things all the time, and it would be very valuable to these companies. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the town. We're going to get a smuggler, and his name is Uno Hansen. And of course, Uno Hansen, he has an assistant, Wargox, who's a lizard partner, but the two of them have a fantastic fast freighter. And they're going to take your uncle and your aunt with us. We're going to drop them off at this planet where he's going to have a fantastic job, and then you are going to go with me to a swamp planet, and we're going to find Vattel. He is an 800-year-old Quajar who will train you. And so Lauren is just like, what? Right? And Sarah looks at Arnold, and she's like, because she realizes he's changing everything exactly like he said he was going to do. And so Lauren has 100 questions, right? And he just kicks them out, right? And Arnold, he's very easily be able to put forward that he knows the past and future of Lauren, because he really does, right? And so Lauren really thinks he is a Quajar. He's able to convince him, and he's also really very easily able to convince him of the danger to his uncle and his aunt. And so he's like, hey, thank you for telling me all this. I wanted to help with the revolution. Let's get this rolling, right? And so at this point, they start packing the speeder, right? This kind of sand speeder that goes across the sand that they took out here to the farm. And so at that point, when they're packing, there's a point where Sarah pulls Arnold away as Lauren goes out to pack some, and she goes, what are you doing? This is crazy. She says, what about Princess Zyla? She, are you just going to abandon her? And what about even Nubar? Ivar Nubin. What about Ivar Nubin? He's supposed to train Lauren. And he goes, he would have only lied to him. That's crazy. And Princess Zyla, Sarah, and he puts his hand on her shoulder, and she gets very worried when he says this. He says, listen, I think Princess Zyla will be okay, and I think she's very, I don't think she needs anybody to rescue her. I think she'd be fine if nobody rescued her. I think she'd be capable of rescuing herself. And she goes, did you see the danger she was in? And she goes, I really do. I think she's going to be fine. And then she looks at him, there's something that he's thinking, but he's not saying. And she's like, And he says, listen, this is the way it needs to be. All right. And so Lauren comes back over and he goes, Kay, can I help you with that box? And Arnold says, yes, you can. And he says, let me tell you about Quaij, which is this omnidirectional, powerful energy which you can use to change the world in many, many different ways. And so Arnold starts to tell him about Quaij, which is this mystical energy which is extremely powerful in the world of constellation confrontations. And at that point, they get in their sand speeder, and all of them go back where they are able to find Uno Hansen and his lizard companion Wargox, and they're able to pay him flat out 12,000 credits to take the uncle and the aunt as well to this planet, where the uncle will be able to work as a consultant for this company who build these dew conglomerates, and then also where he will then be taken to a swamp planet where he'll be trained by an 800-year-old Quajar who lives on a small Quajar who lives on this planet. And so at that point, when they actually land on the swamp planet, and they're able to meet Vattel, and they're eating, and there's a point where Sarah and Arnold kind of walk over, and they're in the middle of this swamp, and they're watching this gigantic snake crawl into the swamp, and they disappear back, and the two of them are standing at Hollywood Hits. And Arnold just puts his arms in the air, and he's jumping up and down. He goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You did it. You did it. You did it. You took me to Constellation Confrontations. This was amazing. We were there. We were there. And she goes, we were there. That was pretty amazing. She goes, but what were you doing? You changed everything. And he goes, I did change everything. I changed everything. And at that point, he gives Sarah a big hug, and then she's kind of shocked and kind of pushes back, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot myself. He goes, I haven't had this much fun in Hollywood Hits since probably 2003 when me and my brother were here and we were talking about Constellation Confrontations. This is a huge gift. Thank you for giving this to me, Sarah. This is really special. I appreciate it. And Sarah says, I'm glad to help, and this is a special place. And that is the end of this section, this chapter, for Adventures at Hollywood Hits.